Welcome to the No Bosses podcast with Spark the Change Toronto. Grab a coffee, have a seat, and take a moment to meet some of the amazing speakers and incredible team members for the Spark Toronto team. It's time to spark some change. Still don't know what I was waiting for. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to Across the Desk. And today is Spark Toronto, which I'm so excited. I was very fortunate last year to welcome speakers on to Across the Desk and introduce you to our amazing speaker panel. And just recently did Spark India as well. So speakers around the world have sat across the desk globally, which is really interesting because it's incredible with technology what we can do. And we're very fortunate today to welcome the very first guest for Across the Desk Spark Toronto, which is Laura Goodrich. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here.
And we got good rich, not good witch, so that's good.
It's good, that's right. Better yet.
Better yet. So we were just chit-chatting about how names can cause some interesting kerfuffles and how people adapt to when they have an interesting name. And my maiden name presented some interesting challenges. And I would never have thought that Goodrich could be turned into Good Witch, but you know, at least it wasn't something worse, right?
It may have been operator error. I'm not sure. I mean, it may have been how I was pronouncing it, but it's happened more than once for sure.
I think it's unlikely, but you know. So, well, Laura is, I have to, so I've got all these tabs open, so I have to go back. So tell me, you're with Global Workforce Transformation, and this is your organization?
It is. GWT Next,
okay.
Which stands for Global Workforce Transformation.
Okay.
So I've been focusing on change in the future of work and researching in that area for, 23 years. And that's kind of our spot of research and then creating work and programs and processes to help address the challenges that come into play in a change dynamic environment.
Before we started talking, so you can find Laura if you go to gwtnext.com. You'll be able to go and check out their website and the different things that they offer. And a little later on, we're going to be talking specifically about one of your programs, which I think sort of drove your topic for Spark Toronto. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about for Spark Toronto, and then we'll find out how you came to be with us.
Good question. So our flagship program is called Creating a Mindset for Change. And what we have done in that program is really highlighted how we unconsciously focus on problems and fear and the things that we don't want, in particular in a change dynamic environment. And we've done a lot of work in that space for, a number of years, and we have been able to move the needle. That's really neat. But what we found in the midst of working on these projects, that while we can help people get really better with change, when it comes to addressing challenges, we have a knee-jerk reaction to them.
Yeah,
we have a habit.
A fear habit in there.
Or it can just be a habit of how we address a challenge. And we're finding more and more that habit often isn't accomplishing what it once did. In other words, we may go out and find employees. We may have found employees in a certain way, and all of a sudden that method isn't working for us anymore. Maybe we have addressed productivity in a given way, and that's not working. Or maybe we've always had everybody in the office all the time, and maybe, just maybe,
that's not
working anymore, right? So from there, we created a thinking process to help people stop in that moment when that knee-jerk reaction is happening.
I'm just going to take notes while you...
Okay, we got a challenge. There's a quick response to how we address that challenge. And we stop in that moment and we look at that knee-jerk reaction. We look at that challenge against all of the drivers of change, all of the elements that might be at play. What are the trends that are going on that may be affecting that challenge? And then we give people tools to look at that solution, a potential solution, in a different way. How do we how do we reframe that? How do we look at it in different ways? And I've got 3 different ways of looking at that challenge and coming up with something different and something new. And so that program is called Driving Agility.
Right.
So that we have a challenge, and in that moment, we challenge that knee-jerk reaction and come up with some other ways of looking at other innovations so that we can have
Move
agility
forward. Yeah.
and move forward and potentially have a really different solution than what we had. So what we find is amazing is that even if things aren't working, really horribly not working, in fact, even if they're tanking, people will still remain tethered and true to that. And so it's an interesting process. So what it leaves people with is that thinking process that they can take with them and consistently use with the challenges that they face.
And is that something that they're going to be able to, it's one thing, sorry, I'll backtrack for a second. One thing we've discovered, this is my 5th Spark. So Spark the Change Toronto has been going since 2015. So this is the rest of the team, this is their 4th. And because I was with Spark India, it's my 5th. But what's really interesting is that globally, if one person has the tools, that's not going to do much at the company. What it takes is them embracing the challenge to change the way they engage with their team and then share those tools so that change in thinking process then becomes part of the company culture. And then you can really move forward and get past the blocks that could be, having problems with the agility of the organization. So is somebody going to be able to take what you're doing and then take it back?
Absolutely. I mean, we'll have a tool that we'll actually use in this session. And if it is something that they think, this is really critical and this is important for us, we create, as I mentioned to you in our earlier conversation, we create what we call cinematic micro-learning programs.
Yes, you did have to say that a couple of times.
So cinematic, we use filmmaking methods to create bite-sized learning that is spaced over time. And you talk about change, so we really believe that real change, we can create awareness and we're going to come together and have a fantastic time together, but real change takes time. Yeah. And that's why we create these programs that are spaced over time, that create those reminders and get that learning deeper, and then mostly getting people to practice, right? To get them to practice. So you don't learn how to walk unless you walk. So, if someone is interested in that, that's always an option. But, they'll leave with a tool that they can use again and again. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it's interesting. So we create this, but I can't tell you how many times as a company we pull it out and we go, okay, here's a challenge. And clearly what once worked is no longer working.
Right.
Let's use this tool. Let's sit down together and let's use this to look at this challenge and see if we can come up with a different angle or a different method. It is something we consistently use ourselves, in fact.
It's interesting that you said that. So I have a women entrepreneurship group that I run. And this month, one thing that came up, which was really interesting, was the way we hire employees. And one of the members of the group is having a real challenge because she's used the same process and the same company to vet employees for her. And, within their industry overall, there's some challenges. And I've said, okay, but that's not working for you anymore. So let's sit down and identify who your target employee is. What are the things that you offer that they're not aware of so that we can start targeting a higher level employee, and it's broken. What you're doing right now is broken. And it's costing you money. It's costing you aggravation. It's costing you productivity. And you made a really valid point before about holding on to the tried and true. And I think what people lose sight of is the negative impact on their business. That when they don't address the fact that they're no longer, the process that they have no longer works, that it's affecting their bottom line. It's going to tank their company potentially. And is it worth hanging on to that to not try a new tool, to not try a new thinking process, to not kick those habits aside and find a way to move forward?
You're right. You're absolutely right. And the reality is that one of the quotes that I often use is that, you will you will stick with something until the suffering
Yeah.
is such that you'll let go. And unfortunately, there's a really significant amount of suffering that people will endure. Now, in this case, it really is not resistant to change. It is just, this is how we've done it. It is the solution. It is the method. It is. So that's why we created, and I'm really passionate about having these conversations, because this isn't about change, because, once we take them through the process, they can sort of shift maybe the way that they have, that they are trying to find employees. Interestingly enough, that one is coming up a lot in these sessions, I should note. And, they look at it and sort of arrange the way that they attract and retain talent just a bit differently. But actually all of the pieces are the same pieces, but they have to go after them in a different way.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what's happening with this friend of mine, is that I said, she said, well, I only need, I'm like, I understand the restrictions around, it's a very niche business that she has. And it's in an industry that's quite competitive for employees. And I said, I understand all of that. I really do. However, if we look at the grand scheme of what you've gone through, this isn't the first time you and I have had this conversation. This isn't the first time we've sat down and gone, okay, how are we going to fix this? And her pain point, her suffering, is now at the level where she's like, okay, you're right. Like, we need to do that. And there was a really interesting statistic on your website that we touched on when we were talking about the cinematic microlearning courses, which I think is a phenomenal idea, because then people are not overwhelmed. The idea of taking on a course when you're an entrepreneur. We talked about the craziness of being an entrepreneur before we started recording. And I mean, some days your days go from 8 a.m. until midnight or longer, and it's all weekend and it's whatever. And I've signed up for courses through a site called Creative Live that are still sitting there, because the thought of sitting through a 4-hour course or whatever, I'm like, how much I could be getting done? And this micro learning course, that's a genius idea, because it's less overwhelming and it's more manageably chunked down for you. And the statistic that you have here, I'm just going to give it a little read. It says here, a global CEO survey indicated that 90% of CEOs believe their organizations are not change adaptive. That is frightening.
Right. And I think, very senior leaders now recognize how much and how dramatically they're going to need to change. And here's what's happening. And this is surprising to them, and truthfully, it isn't to us. What's happening is they're, when we have conversations, they say, okay, last week we got new chairs. Everyone got new chairs. These are ergonomic chairs. Who wouldn't want a new chair? And they had utter mayhem. I mean, people all up in arms over chairs. Another organization that implemented a process of using trash compactors rather than rubbish containers. And again, this reaction. And so they're like, how could that be? And we see this, and we've seen it when there is so much uncertainty in the marketplace and in the workplace. We will latch on to what seem to be the silliest of things, only because we know them. We sit in that chair every day. We know that chair, that is
it's an anchor.
And so it's an anchor, and it's an anchor that people will hold on to. And so that is what I believe has caused 90% of CEOs to say that that they don't believe their organization has the agility, because the question that they bring up is, okay, so if we get chairs and we've got a problem, what in the world is going to happen if we get disrupted and we have to recreate virtually everything that we do? We have to go from, and I always think of like deluxe checks in this place. They go from making checkbooks, to becoming a consulting organization in an unbelievably different industry.
Right.
And think about all the different processes that have to change. You can't just change the work you do. You have to change who your clients are. Yeah. How do you bring them that work? What are the skills and attributes that your employees need? Everything. You have to look at it in a very holistic way and do a whole scale change. full scale,
You have to get
full
buy-in
on.
as well, though. And I think that's what most organizations
And all
forget, is that it's all well and good for you to have identified what you believe is a problem. But if you haven't gone down to the people on the front line whose lives and livelihoods and ability to do their job is going to be impacted by your change in the process, then you're being detrimental, not proactive. And I mentioned before, I'm reading Richard Branson's, one of his autobiographies. And that's one thing that he really talks about, is that your company is successful because of every level of your organization. And when you fail to stop and listen, and when you fail to stop and consider the impact of your actions on the entire organization and the consequences of what that could be, you're running a risky road. And you're missing an opportunity to engage with the people who can give you firsthand knowledge of what needs to change and why, because they're the ones implementing it. They're the ones that are dealing with the customer feedback and, the client experience and what have you. And I wonder sometimes, like I said, Fort Spark, we've had some incredible people that have come on and the ability to learn from them. And it's been interesting to see that fear of change and that inability to get buy-in from the employees is usually one of the biggest disruptors.
No doubt about it. And we have a lot of different tools and methods that we advocate to help in that regard. And you bring them up. You have to look at virtually every facet of the business, and the skills and attributes that need to be in place to be successful with that change. And then, what we really advocate is a process of identifying ambassadors within your organization. These are people that are exemplifying what you need, the attitudes and the behaviors and the skills that you need, and share those stories. And those are, we always say that peer pressure does not stop at 16. We are continuing, right? We're continue to be influenced by others. So find people that are really influential in a positive way.
Yeah. I'm going to be 48 soon, and I'm still subject to groupthink periodically. And you think I'd know better after years and years, but sometimes you get caught up or you get influenced, and it's not very often, mind you. I'm a bit stubborn that way, but when it happens, I'm always caught by surprise.
Well, here's just a silly example that that demonstrates it can happen to the best of us. So we had a lab that was lived to be 16 years old, and we had to carry him down the steps the last couple of years. Carry him down the steps to feed him in the kennel, which is really a laborious process. After all, it's just a habit, right? It was a habit that we were doing. Well, after he passed away, we're like, why are we going way out to the kennel? Why don't we just store the food in the mudroom and feed the other dog here? And it sounds so goofy because it was like, well, we did it. It was habit.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's really, in terms of driving agility, that's really what we're talking about here. It's that kind of thing where we stop and we go, okay, so we need to feed the dog.
I love that story, but that's a terrific analogy. I think, and you talked about another analogy, and then we're gonna wrap up in a couple of minutes. But you made a really valid point. So sounds like we both have a background in healthcare, and you were talking about you had to try and get this young. How old were they?
I was working in healthcare. I put myself through college working in healthcare, and I was working, I'm going to say maybe a 4-year-old little girl, and they wanted to check her visual acuity, acuity. And so, that young of a child, you don't do the ABCs up on a chart. You do a juvenile chart, and on a juvenile chart is, trucks and planes and things that would gather the attention of a little one. And I was hunched down with this beautiful little one, and she kept looking at me rather than looking at the chart. And finally she said, "I like your lips." I'm like, okay.
Which is what I said at the beginning. They're very pretty. But the interesting thing was, though, you found a way around that challenge, and you adapted to what she was needing. and we're able to complete the test by going, thank you so much. And now the boat.
Now the boat. Now let's look at the boat. This just sweet little thing, but it was a distraction that had caught her attention. And then once we acknowledge that, and I think that's really an important piece, in these moments when we've got a little bit of a challenge here, because she was, I was no way that I was going to be able to determine how her eyes were, but based upon what was happening, okay, so we acknowledged that, and then sort of redirected, and that's really what the driving agility process comes down to, is let's make sure that we're stopping with this challenge, and we're going, okay, what's going on? What is going on here? And we're looking at it against, and we put emerging technologies, and we look at it next to those emerging technologies. We consider the realities that are about being a part of a global marketplace where we can communicate like this. We could be virtually anywhere and instantaneously communicate. So what does that mean to us?
That's what we're doing right now, because I'm in the Toronto area.
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and you're down in Minneapolis.
Right, and I'm in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I find that
instantaneously.
Well, you got on before, so we had a little time zone challenge, but it happens. That's what I find fascinating about my business and what I'm doing, is that I can connect with people. I mean, I've done podcasts with people in Belgium, Switzerland, Pune, India. I think France. I'm not sure, but Switzerland's kind of close to the UK, like all over the place. And 10 years ago, it never would have been possible. And the fact that the technology has adapted and people have embraced it, I never would have seen this even 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that this would be something that I'd be able to do.
And so think of it looking through that lens, and to, coming back to that, facing a challenge. I mean, I can go to somebody in the other part of the world who we know is facing that challenge. So coming back to your analogy of that, finding talent, I mean, the certain reality is that this is bone-crushingly difficult in Japan right now, and also in the UK. I mean, start doing searches. I mean, it is a huge, huge deal. Well, yeah. Right? And so as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, hey, I'm prompting people, go see what they're doing in Japan, because, I mean, they can't get healthcare workers coming back to healthcare.
Wow.
They're not able to provide healthcare. Construction is just really, really challenging. Yeah. So we're globally connected. We can find these answers. We can, and the new solution can move into the marketplace at a speed unlike any other.
For certain.
Right. So anyway, we look at that challenge next to those kind of things, like demographics. Like, okay, let's acknowledge these younger generations, because I'll tell you what, they are moving things. They are changing things. They are influencing the marketplace. And there are powerful things that we can learn from them. And so that's what it is. It's a thinking process, and people can walk away with that thinking process and use it when they face challenges.
And now they'll get to learn from you, which will be awesome.
Okay, which will be fun. We're going to have a fantastic time together.
We're a bit of an odd bunch. So, I mean, one of the
my favorite kind, right?
Yeah. You know what? The amazing thing is that we've got such a talented team, and I don't mean that in a self-serving way, but I met the team. I met Jason, I guess, good golly, 4 years ago now, 4 or 5. And he was such the antithesis of any, business type person that I've ever met, in a very positive way. And at the first Spark, I remember saying to him, I'm like, you've changed my life, having me be involved with this project. And he says, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I didn't know organizations didn't have to suck, because I'd been an employee my entire life and had always been the troublemaker, because I didn't think like everybody else. And I didn't, if it was sinking us, I'm very surgical that way. If it's not working and it's sinking, out the door. Let's do the next thing. Let's change it. And everybody else would be like, I was like, come on. Like, we can't continue using broken processes and using antiquated industrial age thinking. That's not serving us anymore. And it was thanks to Jason having the idea to bring Spark to Toronto from the UK that has now changed, I would be confident in saying hundreds of lives, because we were so lucky to have people like you come in and speak and share these tools and these experiences, that somebody's going to have a light bulb moment listening to you, and somebody's going to know that they now have what they need to go back to their organization. And even if it's just within their team, I think it was Gandhi that said, if you don't think one person or one, that's what it was. If you don't think one thing can create a huge change, try being in a tent with a mosquito.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So,
right. I'm so glad that you brought this up, because it's very, very interesting observation that I had, because I received the request to present simultaneously, side by side, Spark with another entity.
ooh,
This is super, super
we won.
interesting. Yeah. And you cannot imagine the difference in the communication. All of the communication with Spark is positive, it is upbeat, it is empowering. The other one was as if I was a little girl in school being schooled and scolded by this organization. And it was like full of rules and full of an iron fist kind of operation.
Yeah,
and,
we don't do that.
And they came in together. And so that's a great example of it. You see how, and that's a great example of how new things and new experiences are being created, and they're not tethered to that legacy thinking that you're described to, because I will guarantee you that other organization is tethered to a legacy process.
Yeah.
And it's all built on, here's how we button it up and do it right, and we build this. And if we're going to have fun, it'll be despite everything that they do, right?
Yeah. And that was when I first got brought onto the team. It was interesting because we started looking for event space, just to illustrate what you're talking about, and nothing fit. So I did research, and I've done event planning for quite a while, and I thought nothing fits. So I went outside of what fit, and I said to Jason, "What do you think about the Science Center?" And he's like, "I don't know. That's a little weird." I'm like, "I know." And we went on a site visit, and we walked in, and he was there 10 minutes, maybe. And he's like, "This is it. This is awesome." And I said, "Okay." The event planner in me and the pragmatic person in me is saying, we have to see one more place before you make the decision. But he knew walking in that it was the kind of innovative, interesting, out of the box place. And they're incredible there. The Science Center is an incredible host for events, and they've been terrific in accommodating our eccentricities, and allowing us to really deliver an event that people aren't expecting. So I'm really excited.
And the experience, right? And the experience. And so think about that. I mean, really what you've created and what you're doing
Jason's
is the kind of thing, all of you working together, is the kind of solution and the kind of new way of doing things that could come out of driving agility. It really is. Because most of the time, there's countless organizations that are planning next year's event. And what they're doing is they're just latching onto what has been done, right? They're regurgitating what has been done, and it's and what we'll talk about and demonstrate is that's easy to happen. In fact, that could very easily begin happening with you folks as you get to this more mature place. Like, how do we make sure that we continue? To
we've got
be creative and. I'm sure.
Yeah. So for everybody that might not know, Spark the Change is happening this year, June 7th and 8th. It is a 2-day, full-day conference. We kick off at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have amazing food coming from the food dudes, and we have a barista this year. Very fancy. Yes, I know. Jason's very excited. So fancy coffees abound. And we've just got some really amazing speakers coming. We've got some amazing activities planned that people won't be expecting. And it's a lot of fun. You learn. Our feedback is consistently, I've now got ideas that I've never had before. And you mean not to not to get all sales schmarmy, but it's just so much fun. That's all I can tell you. It's a lot of fun, and you get to learn at the same time, which is, tick, tick. And you came to us through Vikas Narula, who's also one of our speakers this year. And Vikas spoke in 2016 at the Science Center with us. So it's going to be exciting to see what changes and twists he's put on his presentation, which was very exciting, because we went back to our speakers of a couple of years ago and said, hey, who do you think would be a good fit for Spark, and who would you put forward? And he put forward Laura Goodrich. So yay, Goodrich.
Lovely. He's right. He's a fantastic friend. He's a fantastic friend, a fantastic entrepreneur. There again is a great example of, how you want to get more of something that works.
Yeah.
Go to that, go rather than going blindly out there and trying to find it, go to that somewhat. As they say, birds of a feather flock together. So that's awesome.
Full seldom part, it could go either way.
Oh, I'm excited about it. I think we should have great fun, and it's going to happen. It's going to come up really quickly for us. So
yeah, so it's a month. In 3 days, it'll be a month. It'll be exactly 4 weeks. We are 80% sold out of our tickets already. Not a lot left. We'll do that little push, because if you want your ticket, get in there. But thank you so much. We're going to wrap up, and I really, really appreciate what you're going to be sharing at Spark, and what the ingenious ideas you're going to be bringing, and the tools that our attendees will be able to provide we're just excited. We just get very excited. Just go there. It's my Karen Mullally or Megan Mullally moment, or whatever you want to call it. Apparently I remind Laura of Karen from Will and Grace, which I'll take, although I don't drink, so that could be a problem. But the odd mojito. But so if you wanted to find out more about Karen, I'm just going to click over here. You want to go to GWT Next.
Laura.
What did I say?
You said Karen, because you're talking about Karen from Will and Grace.
So we might edit that part out. Who knows? So gwtnext.com. And you can also catch Laura on LinkedIn, just under Laura Goodrich, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
and
Laura Goodrich for Twitter. Twitter, winner, chicken dinner. So that's right. Just at Laura Goodrich. You're easy to find. That's awesome.
That's right.
And then you can also check out her bio on Spark the Change Toronto under our speaker's profile, which has got a little blurb about her and then connects off to her social media as well. Thank you very much, Laura, for being the first guest for Spark Toronto. Really appreciate it.
I loved it. I loved it, and I can't wait.
Yay! See, I'm not scary.
Of course not.
It's a lot of fun. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening, and please visit us at sparkthechangetoronto.ca to learn more, or you can follow us on Twitter at SparkConfTO.